Howdy, folks. I hope you're all doing well today. I wanted to talk a little bit about one of my special interests, and that happens to be maps and roads and like highways, interstates, and signs. And it's basically like one big interest, I guess you could say. Like it's all wrapped up into one thing. Here's the story of how it all started. So back when I was in elementary school, this was a long time ago, and we had, or I think there was some kind of competition or a raffle. I honestly can't remember how it happened, but I won some kind of thing. I can't remember if it was a raffle or if it was some kind of game, but I won something and I was able to pick from a couple books. I had the option to choose a few books to take or to own. And at first I picked one. It was like a little kid's book, like a story book, and I had it for a couple seconds, and then I saw the other book that I wanted, and that happened to be an atlas. And I looked at that as well, and then that I don't really know what it was, but something in my mind when I looked at the maps and the highways and the lines on the map, it really just clicked in my mind, and something told me, yeah, this is something I really like. So I picked instead I took that atlas instead of that other book, and I remember reading it on the bus. I remember when I took it home, I just spent hours reading it all day, or maybe not all day, but I certainly spent hours reading it. I know that I'd eat my food while reading it. I'd eat ice cream. I remember I would just sit in my room and read it for hours, and I'd look at my state, which was Tennessee, because that's where I lived. I lived in Tennessee at the time, and so I remember I just studied the state of Tennessee, and I studied all the interstates, all the highways, all the little towns, all the names. Like I, like that was a hyper interest, or obsessing over an interest. I can't remember the actual term that they use for autistic people that like that stuff, but yeah, I was glued to that atlas, and I think I still have it somewhere. Although I think it's in a box, it's in storage, but yeah, that was that was a really cool thing. And so, as I got older, when we would take road trips, we would come up here to Michigan to visit family, and every time we would, get on the road, I'd always I'd see the interstates, and I'd be like, yep, I saw them on the map, and I researched the route that we would always take to get up here and then to come home. I memorized the exit names, the highway, the what was it, the town names and the highway numbers. Like I didn't memorize all of it, but I memorized quite a bit. Like I'd be like, oh, okay, now I know where I am. We're in Cincinnati or whatever. Even the small little towns that, that not many people would remember. I even memorized them. I'm like, oh, okay, we're in, whatever, Franklin, Kentucky. Like, so basically I would memorize that stuff. And one thing that I also did, and I didn't know about at the time because I hadn't been diagnosed with autism until I was, I think, 21. So one thing that I did, it was a stim. I think it was like one of the first stims that I ever really did that I knew about, or that I can remember from that far back. So every time we would pass by like an interstate sign or highway sign, I would mimic the number. Like I would write it in the air, basically. Like I would, like if it was Interstate 40, I would like basically write out 40 with my hands in the air. And at the time I just thought it was normal. That's what I like to do. Of course, my family, I was always wondering, like, why were you doing that? I said, well, I don't know, I just like to do it. Of course, now that I know about my autism, of course I understand that was just a stim. I enjoyed it. And I even I would even read out the exits as well. Like I would like whatever the name of the road was of the town, I would actually read it out loud. And I know I probably annoyed my family a bunch with that because I kept reading out the signs. I would mimic the numbers, and it just that was something I was really interested in. And like I said, I kept studying that atlas and studying the highways, the interstates, and it's something I was really interested in. And even now, I'm not as interested in maps as I used to be, but like when we go to plan a trip, like last year I went to Nebraska, and of course I studied the route. I studied it for hours. I studied what interstates we were going to be on, what roads we were going through, where I wanted to stop. So that's still part of me even now, even though I'm not as heavily interested in it. But I still studied it. I still what was it? I studied like all the interstates we would be passing, all the towns, the cities. it's still part of me even now as an adult, and it's pretty cool. Another interesting thing is, I think, what was it, last year? I think we also went to what was it, Irish Hills, yeah, and I really enjoyed being out there. And there's this highway, what was it, Highway 12, I think, the U.S. Route 12, and we were riding down that, and I really, one thing I'd like to do, and that I wanted to do, is I wanted to ride that Highway 12 all the way through Michigan, and then and then when I came home after our trip, I wanted to memorize all the counties that Highway 12 goes through. So I went home and I spent another few hours just looking at Highway 12 and seeing what towns it goes through, what counties it goes through. I studied that, and that was just last year, so I'm still doing stuff like that. When I see a town or a county or something that I'm interested in, like last year it was Lenawee County, I think that's how you pronounce it. I was really interested in that because that's where Irish Hills is, and I was just like, I spent hours just looking at where Lenawee County is, what towns are in it, and what roads go through it, how far it is. And so I ended up memorizing all of the counties that road goes through. I can't remember them all offhand right now because that was a year ago. I probably should still remember them, but I remember Lenawee County and all that. There's quite a few, but yeah, so that was something that really was interesting. I just studied that for so long, and so even now as an adult, I still enjoy reading maps. And I know one thing, when I was a kid, I never really studied the West very much because, we just lived in Tennessee, or we would come to Michigan. Those were the only places we would ever really go. So I never really studied much of the Western United States. But lately, basically for the last few years, I've been studying more and more about the West, like California or the Great Plains states, and I really wanted to go there. My dream is to hopefully one day travel to all the 48 continental, or the main states, the 48 main states. So, but I was really studying like the interstates that go out through all these states, even like the states that really people don't talk about very much. It was still interested me, and so yeah, so it's just been an interesting hobby and interest for me. So yeah, that's basically it. So thanks for watching, and hope you all have a great day. Bye.